The Jews never stole any land from the Arabs. How do I dare say that when there is so much talk about the Jews stealing land from the Palestinians? Well, let's dive straight into it. If you walked into a police station in London, Berlin, or Wisconsin and said, "My neighbor stole from me," the policeman would probably say, "Okay, what did he steal and when?" In this video, we are going to follow this very basic logic. I'm asking you one very simple question. Give me the name of a single Jewish settlement that was built on stolen Arab land before the Arabs said no to the partition plan, aka the two-state solution, and started a war to eradicate the Jews in 1947. What I'm saying is very straightforward. All of the Jewish settlements were built on land that the Jews bought. And if you think I'm wrong, then please provide me with some proof. Give me one example of Arab who owned a piece of land during the time of the Ottoman Empire, so until 1917, or under the British Mandate, so until 1948, and then had his land taken away from him by the Jews. For those of you who need a quick history lesson, at the time of the Ottoman Empire, so from the 16th century to the beginning of the 20th century, there were no countries in the Middle East. During that time, there were no borders either, and people moved around the territory for various economic, religious, and political reasons. There were drastic changes in the land of Israel during the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century. Here are the main ones. In 1831, an Egyptian ruler called Muhammad Ali of Egypt conquered the land of Israel, and as a result, thousands of Egyptians migrated to the area. The European powers saw that the Ottoman Empire was weak and bought up land in order to build institutions to gain influence in the region. If you visit Jerusalem, you will see institutions built by the French and the Russians, the Austrians, as well as the Germans and Italians. There was a religious group of Germans called the Templars who migrated to Israel and built a few villages. They thought that by doing so, they would expedite the second coming of Jesus. The Ottomans built the Hijaz Railway and brought over thousands of Egyptians to work in the land of Israel. One of the most popular last names of the Arabs in Gaza and Israel is Masri or Masarwa, which means Mitzri, Egyptian. There were groups of people like the Circassians and Armenians who fled wars in Russia and Turkey, and there were the Jews who came to Israel as they saw it as their homeland. In other words, thousands of people moved there for various reasons. And what about the Palestinians? Why haven't I mentioned them? Well, they didn't exist in the 19th century. That is not my opinion. That is a basic fact. If you think that I'm wrong, then please prove me wrong. Show me a single letter, book, journal of a pilgrim in which someone writes that he met a Palestinian. The Arabs of the land of Israel only started to see themselves as Palestinians in the 1960s. Anyway, the Jews, just like the Germans and the Russians and the Arabs, bought land. And not only that, the Jews bought the worst parts, the desert land and the swamp land. And although they mostly came from countries where they were not allowed to own land, the Jews achieved the impossible and turned the swamplands into gold and made the desert bloom. And yes, we are actually very proud of this. Israel is the leading power when it comes to water management, irrigation, and agriculture. And it is all started with the Jews having to overcome the challenges posed by the land. Back to my original point. The Arabs were against the Jews, but not because they stole their land, because they didn't. Even if you follow quotes of Arab leaders from 1948, you will see that they are not complaining about the Jews stealing land. Amin al-Husseini, the leader of the Arabs in Palestine, said, "The Arabs would not be content with preventing partition, but would continue fighting until the Zionists were annihilated and the whole of Palestine became a purely Arab state." So what is the reason for the Arabs' hatred of the Jews? What has bothered the Arabs from 1947 till today is the existence of Jews in the land of Israel, and the independence of Jews in that they have their own land. Iran, Hezbollah, and Hamas state this very clearly. listen to them. They are crystal clear. The Hamas constitution doesn't say, we want 70% of the land or anything like that. Instead, what it actually says is Israel will exist until Islam wipes it out. And the vast majority of the Palestinians support that point of view. A few days before I published this video, I put out a short video on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube Short that the Jews never stole any land. And I asked people to give me the name of a single Jewish settlement that was built on stolen Arab land. By the way, please do follow me on TikTok and Instagram as well. Anyway, I got about 500,000 views and 0 relevant answers from pro-Palestinians. The most liked comment from the pro-Palestinian side says, white guy in Middle East saying land was never stolen. I have 2 things to say about this comment. First, it shows just how racist the pro-Palestinians, so the left and the Muslims, are. If you comment on my skin color rather than what I say, then that makes you a racist. If a Jew with dark or black skin said the same things as me, would that make a difference? So the first thing to note is how racist the pro-Palestinians are. Second, and I've said it before and I will say it again, most Jews living in Israel today and 100 years ago were Jews from Arab countries. Many of them fled Muslim countries because of persecution, and they had to leave all their property behind. Property that was stolen by Egypt, Iraq, Syria, and the list goes on. Another sort of comment that I get from pro-Palestinians is that what I'm saying doesn't justify the genocide in Gaza. Now, I find this to be a very poor argument. First, don't put words in my mouth. I never said that genocide is justified. I have a lot to say about genocide in the Middle East. There isn't a single minority, be it the Jews, Hindus, or Christians, who haven't suffered genocide at the hands of Muslims, from Pakistan to Greece. I will be more than happy to make videos about Gaza, genocide, apartheid, and the West Bank. I've talked about many of these topics in previous videos. But don't switch topics just because you don't have anything smart to say. Admit the simple fact. The Jews never stole any land from the Arabs. The Palestinians only lost land after they had started a war to eradicate the Jews. Losing land in a war you started doesn't make you a victim. Ask the Germans. They started an unjust war. They lost 25% of their land, but they don't see themselves as victims because they know they were in the wrong. You know who stole land? The Arabs stole land from the Jews. Let me give you a few examples. In 1888, a group of Jews bought some land in the southern part of the Golan Heights. The name of the village was Bnei Yehuda. In 1920, local Arabs killed the mother and one of the sons of the last Jewish families that was there, and the Arabs took over the land. In 1929, the Arabs attacked the Jews of Gaza. Yes, there is a long history of Jews in Gaza. So in 1929, as well as the Arab attack on the Jews, the British evacuated the Jews from Gaza, and the Arabs of Gaza stole their property. The same thing happened in Hebron, but this time not only did the local Arabs steal Jewish property, but they also murdered dozens of Jews in the most horrific ways. I could give you many more examples, but here is one last one. In 1882, a group of Jews migrated from Yemen to Israel because they were suffering persecution and because Israel is the homeland of the Jews. Now, let me tell all you pro-Palestinians 2 facts about Jews from Yemen. Yemen is not in Europe. And since I know how important skin color is to you, I just want to let you know that the Jews from Yemen have dark skin. It's not black, but it is brown. They also have black hair. I hope that I've provided enough racial information for you to be able to judge them accordingly. Anyway, they bought land in Kfar HaShiloach, today known as Silwan. And in the Arab Revolt, 1938, the last Jew was murdered as he was trying to save a Torah scroll from the synagogue. The local Arabs took over the Jewish property. So I've given you 4 examples of Arabs stealing the land of Jews. Now, let's see if you can find me one case of Jews stealing land. If you're a student at Columbia University or any other university, go to your smart professors and tell them that you saw this video made by a Zionist Jew who claims that Arabs stole land from Jews and that you can't give me the name of one piece of land that the Jews stole before the 1948 war. You might think that you will search, find, and leave a comment, and that I will then delete your comment. Well, no, I don't delete comments. I believe in freedom of speech and open discussions. I criticize the Muslim world and the left for limiting and restricting freedom of speech. The last thing I want to do is to be like them. So, prove me wrong or admit the simple fact that the Jews never stole land from the Arabs. I want to thank all my supporters. The only way I can keep making these videos is with your support. Contrary to the pro-Palestinian claims, I don't get paid by the Israeli government. And Mossad pays very little. Just kidding, I don't get support from anyone apart from you. To those people who think that my videos are important enough to donate $5 or $10 a month, thank you again. You keep me going. Like, subscribe, and share this video. See you next week. Yalla bye.